suburbs, metroplex, that sort of thing. One of the things that we both really enjoyed about being in Colwell is that the life is a lot simpler than it is in Houston. We love that. It's very appealing to us. Not simplistic, simpler. I think there's a very powerful reason why Jesus was born in Bethlehem. I don't know if you caught it, but in the Advent candle reading, the prophet Micah, hundreds of years before Jesus was born, predicted that he would be born in Bethlehem, an insignificant town of 800 people. Not a big city, because the nearest city to Bethlehem was Jerusalem. Jerusalem in Jesus' day had 600,000 people. It would swell to almost 1 million people during the festivals, especially the Passover festival. But Jesus was born in Bethlehem. Quiet little town. It serves as a great reminder to us that God is purposefully doing these things in our lives to introduce to us to Him in the simplest of ways. And Christ's life continued like that. Christ's lifestyle was simple. The purpose of Christ is simple. But again, we tend to make things complex. If you don't believe me, go find somewhere in Bryan College Station where people have to parallel park. And watch. And if things get complex when you're just trying to parallel park, watch for a while and see if emotions get involved if there are two people in the car. Especially if one thinks they can do a better parallel parking job than the other. We tend to make lives complex. And when emotions get involved, even more so. The same is true with God. We make God very complex. Well, not we, but I think we continue to do that. What I'm specifically referring to is the Israelites. So God reached out to them with the law. A lot of the law was just simple stuff. Don't eat pork if you're in the middle of a desert. There's no refrigerator. Don't eat pork. A lot of God's law was simple in the sense of it taught people how to be good humans to one another, how to be loving towards each other. The law was simple in the sense that it taught people how to respect God in worship and how to enter into a relationship with God. But the people at that time made it really, really complex. And how they made it complex was they said, well, if you want to get close to God, then you've got to follow all of those laws. You've got to check them off. And the more that you get checked off, the closer you are to God. Imagine that. In other words, if you're naughty and you can't check off all the blocks, God's not that interested in you. But if you're nice and you check off all the blocks, God's interested in you then. And God said, no, that's not what the story is. That's not what I gave the law for. That's not why I introduced myself to you in that way. Not at all. But we made things complex. God was simply trying to tell them, the laws are there so that you can learn to love each other and love me, not so that you can earn my love. That may work for Santa, but it doesn't work that way with God. But again, humbly, we tend to make things complex in our feelings towards God and how we deal with God. And that's why the Christmas story needs to focus on simplicity. And I do it each year because it is so important that we get reminded that the way that God reaches out to us is not difficult. It is very simple. We want to make those rules and check those boxes. And we want to say, well, you know, I'm not quite sure if God's fully vested in me because of all of these things. And God's saying, no, the story is simple. I'm invested in you. I love you and I care for you no matter who you are, no matter whether you've been naughty or nice. I care for you. Don't always want you to remain naughty. I want to change your life. But the story is simple. It's powerful. But it's also not a story that just sits at an event from 2,000 years ago. God wanted that story to continue on. So we enter Jesus' adult life and we hear his words. Whoever comes to me will never grow hungry, says Jesus. Seeing Christ. You see, the problem was seeing Christ wouldn't cement our belief in him. And that's what all those people were trying to do with Jesus. Jesus, if only you can show us an impressive enough miracle. And by the way, we'll determine what impressive is. If you show us an impressive enough miracle, then we'll believe you. It didn't work that way. Jesus had to remind them. This is not about manna falling from the sky in the desert. This is about a man in your life who can make a difference in your life. A permanent difference. A man who will permanently be around. Jesus then went on to say, whoever comes to me, I will never drive away. No exclusions there. Your name isn't in that verse. It simply says, I will never drive away anyone who accepts the invite. Never. And all are invited. There's one other fact about Bethlehem that's very interesting. In Hebrew, the word Bethlehem means house of bread. House of bread. I'm sure you've made the connection already. In the passage in John that we read, Jesus said, I am the bread of life. God doesn't work on coincidences. Bethlehem, the house of bread. Jesus, the bread of life. Bethlehem, the story of the nativity scene captured in one moment. Jesus, the bread of life, continuing that moment throughout life, throughout all of our lives. God wanted it to be that way. God wanted that bread to continue. God wanted that bread to be the essence of life. You see, the way things worked in Jesus' day was the law was you didn't use a fork to eat your food, to put in your mouth, because that would be unclean. Using a fork to put something in your mouth and then taking it back out again and stabbing your food with it, that was even worse. So in Jesus' time, people used bread to scoop their food up. That's how they ate the meal. They didn't have a fork, they used bread. And they'd eat that bread. So bread wasn't just a basic sustenance, it was the way that you ate your meal. That's what Jesus is hoping and praying that will continue in our own lives. Is that Jesus is not just the very sustenance of our lives, but that Christ is the very means that we find purpose and depth in life. And God continued to do that, continued to tell that story. See, the nativity scene that we visit at Christmas time was not God's moment of saying, I'm going to pop in and visit humanity and see how they do. That's not the purpose of the nativity story. The purpose of the nativity story is not God saying, I'll make a guest appearance. That's not the purpose of the story. The purpose of the nativity story is not God taking a selfie and saying, well, this is a moment we'll preserve through the rest of life, and 2,000 years later people will be celebrating this nativity scene. No. God wanted that story to develop and mature in our own lives so that the nativity scene would just be one part of our story. That the baby Christ would grow to be the Christ who is the bread of our life, the essence of our life, the center of our life. It was meant to be permanent, not some kind of a special edition, not kind of a strange event, but a simple story that would continue to tell itself into our lives and be lived out in our lives. But again, we make it complex. We tend to believe in God but trust in ourselves. We tend to believe in God but trust in ourselves. When God's message is, believe in me and trust me. Part of what Jesus was trying to say to that group of people who said, show us a miracle, prove yourself to us. Jesus was saying, I don't want you just to believe in me. I want you to trust me. Trust me with your life. If I'm going to be the bread of your life, if I'm going to be the sustenance of your life, and the very means by which you get meaning in life, if I'm going to be the scoop that brings meaning into your life, then trust me. This poem is called Windows of the Soul by Ken Gire. Help me, O God, to live the recipe before I give the recipe. Give me the needing strength to work the words into the doughy recesses of my life. Help me to leave it alone a while so that it can rise. Help me not to fear the oven so that it can bake. And grant that in the baking, the world would be able to roll down its window and savor the aroma of freshly baked bread. That's the message of Christ. The simple means by which Jesus says, I want to come in and be part of your life, part of your everyday life, and I want you to trust me with that. So will you allow God to weave himself into those deep recesses of the dough of your life? The complicated parts. That God would weave and knead all of that together. And then would you trust God that in his time, he will work in your life? Give it time to rise, said the poet. Give God time to work. That's part of the trust. That's part of God being the bread of your life in Jesus Christ. So what? So that you could then become the recipe to others. So that aroma of that fresh bread would bring hope to other people. Because of the work that God is doing in your life. That's the message of the nativity scene. Not just that God popped in for a visit, but that God came to make a difference. And he can do that if we'll trust him and not just believe in him. Let's pray. God, we thank you for a gift that wasn't a once in a lifetime, but a gift that keeps on happening and growing within us. God, help us, those of us who are struggling with trusting you, with trusting the time that you take, not just what you're doing. Help us this Christmas to be able to say, as I visit this nativity scene, God, once again, I need to put my life in your hands. I need to let it go. God, you to do the work with me. Thank you, God, for simply loving me. In Christ's name, amen.
Would you please stand and turn to hymn 240, Hark the Herald Angels Sings.
Thank
If you'll be seated, please. The lighting or the sharing of the light from the Advent candle is going to be a little different this year. Usually we circle up in a big circle, but you're going to remain seated. The ushers are going to come and get the light from Terry and myself, which we'll use the Christ candle as our source. When we reach the end of this time with the candle and you're blowing your candle out, if you have a mask on, use your fingers. Otherwise, you're going to be here a long time trying to blow that out. The other thing to remember is, please, when you have a lit candle, make sure it remains upright. If you're lighting from that lit candle, lean your candle in. It will save you from a wax burn. The ushers will come and light your candles at the end of each row.
John reminds us, those in darkness have seen a great light. Go and share your light. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas.
If you'll leave your candles in the baskets at the doors as you exit